In the middle of the 19th century, the United States of America stood at a crossroads. Less than a century after winning independence, the young nation was deeply divided. What began as political disagreement would soon erupt into the deadliest conflict in American history. The American Civil War, fought between 1861 and 1865, was not only a war between the North and the South, it was a battle over identity, freedom, power, and the future of the nation itself. For decades, the United States had expanded westward at an extraordinary pace. New states were formed, territories opened, and economic opportunities multiplied. But with every step forward, an unavoidable question followed: would slavery be allowed to expand into these new lands? The answer divided the country along geographic, economic, and moral lines. The northern states, increasingly industrialized, relied on factories, railroads, and wage labor. Slavery had largely disappeared there, and many Northerners believed it was morally wrong and incompatible with modern democracy. The southern states, however, depended heavily on agriculture, especially cotton, and that economy was built upon enslaved labor. For Southern leaders, slavery was not only an economic system but a social foundation they were determined to protect. Political compromises attempted to hold the nation together. The Missouri Compromise of 1820, the Compromise of 1850, and the Kansas-Nebraska Act were all efforts to balance free and slave states. Each compromise postponed conflict but deepened mistrust. Violence erupted in Kansas as pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers fought for control, earning the territory the name Bleeding Kansas. As tensions escalated, voices on both sides grew louder. Abolitionists in the North demanded an end to slavery. Southern leaders warned that their way of life was under attack. The Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision in 1857, which ruled that enslaved people were not citizens and that Congress had no authority to ban slavery in the territories, shocked the North and strengthened Southern confidence. The breaking point came in 1860 with the election of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln opposed the expansion of slavery, though he did not initially call for its immediate abolition. To Southern leaders, his election represented a direct threat. One by one, Southern states began to secede from the Union. By early 1861, 11 states had formed the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as their president. The United States was now divided. The Union, representing the North, insisted that secession was illegal and that the nation must remain whole. The Confederacy argued that states had the right to leave and govern themselves. War became inevitable. The first shots were fired on April 12, 1861, at Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Confederate forces bombarded the federal fort, forcing its surrender. Though no one was killed in the initial attack, the message was clear. The Civil War had begun. At first, many believed the war would be short. Both sides underestimated the scale of the conflict ahead. The Union possessed advantages in population, industry, and transportation. The Confederacy, however, fought on familiar terrain and was led by experienced military officers. Early battles shattered illusions of a quick victory. The First Battle of Bull Run in 1861 ended in chaos, proving the war would be long and bloody. As fighting spread, the true cost of war became apparent. The Union strategy focused on blockading southern ports, controlling the Mississippi River, and gradually crushing Confederate resistance. The Confederacy sought to defend its territory and wear down Northern resolve. Both sides mobilized massive armies, drawing millions of men into service. One of the most important figures of the war was Abraham Lincoln. As president, he faced enormous pressure from generals, politicians, and the public. His primary goal was to preserve the Union, but over time, the war transformed his vision of the nation. The year 1862 marked a turning point. Battles such as Antietam and Shiloh demonstrated unprecedented levels of destruction. Antietam became the bloodiest single day in American history. Though militarily inconclusive, it provided Lincoln the opportunity he needed to redefine the war. In September 1862, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate-held territory would be freed. Though it did not immediately end slavery, it changed the nature of the war. The conflict was no longer only about preserving the Union, it was now also a war for freedom. The proclamation also allowed African Americans to join the Union Army. By the end of the war, nearly 180,000 black soldiers had served, playing a crucial role in Union victory while fighting for a freedom many had never known. Meanwhile, the Confederacy faced growing challenges. Its economy suffered under Union blockades. Supplies ran low, and internal divisions weakened morale. Still, Confederate generals like Robert E. Lee achieved notable victories, particularly in Virginia, where the Army of Northern Virginia became a formidable force. The Battle of Gettysburg in July 1863 marked a decisive turning point. Fought over 3 days in Pennsylvania, it was the largest battle of the war. Lee's invasion of the North ended in defeat, and Confederate forces were forced to retreat. At the same time, the Union gained control of the Mississippi River after the fall of Vicksburg, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. Later that year, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address. In just a few minutes, he redefined the purpose of the war, emphasizing equality, sacrifice, and the survival of democracy. His words would echo through history. As the war dragged on, its human cost became staggering. Entire towns were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Disease claimed more lives than bullets. Soldiers endured unimaginable hardship, and civilians suffered deeply on both sides. In 1864, the Union adopted a more aggressive approach. General Ulysses S. Grant launched relentless campaigns against Confederate forces, while General William Tecumseh Sherman marched through Georgia, destroying infrastructure and crippling the Southern war effort. Sherman's march demonstrated the concept of total war, targeting not just armies but the economic foundations of resistance. Despite mounting losses, the Confederacy fought on. But by 1865, the end was near. Union forces tightened their grip, and Confederate resources were exhausted. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Court House. The Civil War was effectively over. Just days later, the nation was shocked by tragedy. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The man who had preserved the Union did not live to see the nation rebuilt. The Civil War left deep scars. More than 600,000 soldiers died. Slavery was abolished with the passage of the 13th Amendment. The United States emerged transformed, but the struggle for equality was far from over. Reconstruction would follow, bringing hope, resistance, and new conflict. The legacy of the Civil War would shape American politics, race relations, and national identity for generations. The American Civil War was not merely a clash of armies. It was a defining moment, a test of whether a nation founded on liberty could survive its own contradictions. Out of blood and sacrifice, a more united but deeply challenged America emerged. It remains one of the most studied, debated, and remembered conflicts in world history, not only for its scale and devastation, but for the questions it forced humanity to confront about freedom, unity, and justice.